Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing. I'm Tony Haggerty, a Haggerty10 Twitter handle, and I'm joined today, as always, by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW. How you doing, Sean?
Not bad, Tony. Aye, yourself? I don't think I ever say anything different when you ask me right enough, but aye, fine and dandy.
Indeed. Welcome to everybody. And as we always do at the start, we're housekeeping. You can see in the top left and are running along the bottom of the screen our sponsor, OneFootball app. Get downloading the OneFootball app, guys. The link's in the description. As I always say, it's the one-stop football shop for scores, news, lineups, transfer rumours, live streaming, match highlights, and much, much more. It's a brilliant app. You can immerse yourself in the digital football world and have the best personal digital experience out there. It's a cracking app, OneFootball app, and we thank them again for their sponsorship. And as you can see, running along the bottom, we have a new offer for you today. If you hit subscribe, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, you can have a free trial of the Celtic Way for 1 month and support top quality journalism. That's a free trial for 1 month. Give it a try. You might even like us, Sean. What do you say to that?
They might find they do, aye. They might find that's the scariest prospect.
And Sean's put the links there in the comments section. Now, Sean, we never stop. Celtic never sleeps. And overnight or early evening last night, we found out that Cameron Carter-Vickers has agreed personal terms. Now it's just up to the clubs to agree the final fee, and he looks like he might be extending his stay at Celtic.
Aye, I mean it is great news. As a lot of the comments coming in are saying, I think if I'm correct, it was Fraser Wilson at the Daily Record who reported it last night. The story of the deadline for concluding a deal, I'm sure, came from a reporter over in America called Larry Henry Jr., I think. Yes. And then the Daily Record took it on further by reporting, as you say, that the wages have apparently been agreed. Now, given it was a loan deal and certain clauses existed, Tony, that makes it seem almost like a kind of foregone conclusion, does it not?
It does indeed. Reading between the lines, you would like to think that Cameron Carter-Vickers will be staying at Celtic. It looks like he wants to have a crack at the Champions League, playing the big time. And yeah, but I guess like everything else, Sean, until the club announce it, people are still sceptical because deals can go awry or hit, as I said yesterday, snags at the last minute. But yeah, it's really positive news for Celtic. And the Retro Celtic, they're fantastic news, and CCV agreeing personal times. Feel confident, just a matter of time before he signs. Yep. Patrick McLaughlin, hope we get this over the line. It's great news. I'll wait before I pump my fist. We've been still in the past. And it seems like Andy's on a mission. Yeah, and I think that's what most of the Celtic supporters feel, Sean, that until it is officially announced, they're still kind of on tenterhooks. But it's a great sign, just even agreeing personal terms, because in the past, Celtic have stalled at that stage.
And I think that's the stage that we were kind of worried about, me and Alison, when we were speaking about it. That might be where the snag came, not the actual fee, but the wages.
Yeah.
So if he's agreed that and even if it's in principle a wage structure that suits him to stay at Celtic, I think that's a massive step forward.
Yeah. Tim and Nonsu, this could be hearsay, but you have to big up Anjan, Fraser Nicholson on the board. Of course you do. Now,
same for January as well. January, I think we sat here at the end of the January window and says they've got January window correct, and they acted quickly, swiftly, got the players in. I think we did praise them in January.
I think they're going about their business again and trying to get it concluded early, Sean.
Yep.
Now, we spoke off air before we came on, and you said that you were that when I wrote a piece speaking to two agents about how those deals worked. I spoke to Raymond Sparks and I spoke to Glenn Corcoran. Raymond Sparks, a famous Scottish agent, and Glenn Corcoran, Joe Allen's agent, and they explained how these option to buy and loan deals work, didn't they?
Yep.
And it was a pretty enlightening piece. And after that, I was a wee bit more relaxed about it all, because they explained the ins and outs and how you protect the club and protect yourselves and all that kind of stuff. And it was quite an interesting piece, if I remember right, Sean.
It was. I enjoyed it. I've put it in the comments if anybody wants to go back and read it, because it's still relevant now. It was mostly about the Jota deal, but it pretty much took in everything. It was really informative. It was like loan deals in general, loans with an option to buy, loans with an obligation to buy, the ins and outs of those deals. And if I remember rightly, one of the agents that you spoke to kind of likened the process to like dating, a betrothal, and then ultimately marriage.
Yeah, that was Raymond Sparks. Yeah.
Off the back of that, would you agree that this is at least no longer dating?
But I think there's a betrothal now, isn't there? Yes, yes, and we're just waiting to walk down the aisle. If you're going to put it in those kind of couch it in those terms, but yes, indeed. But I think there's just a lot of positivity emanating from Celtic, Sean, at this minute. You know, on the back of winning the title and winning the League Cup, and just you know, the transfer windows that they've had, and qualifying for the Champions League. It's kind of good news week, you know. So I think everybody is in a good place at Celtic at this moment in time.
I think Pete's comments probably the way that's why I've already had a comment about praising Michael Nicholson and the board, because it is refreshing. January was maybe a hint at what was to come this window. Obviously the Maida deal, which was announced just as we were coming off yesterday, that literally was a foregone conclusion. That was an obligation, so we knew that was going to happen. But still, to have that confirmed and all that, it all ties into that kind of sense of getting your business done early. The fact that they don't have qualifiers as well.
Oh, it's just that's brilliant.
So it's not even to get ready for the qualifiers. It's actually to give them a full pre-season to get ready for the start of the league campaign and then ultimately the Champions League group stages. That all ties into that kind of sense of getting your ducks in a row.
You feel there's a real sense of momentum building here, Sean, don't you? Just trying to have a real tilt at Europeans Premier Club competition and go in there and make a fist of it, which I always think Celtic should. But there's a real sense of togetherness here, and Ange, the board, you know, wanting to go in with playing their strongest hand possible with their strongest team possible.
I mean, David Gillespie makes a good point here, not to take it too much to the negative, but if they weren't to get both of them, for instance, not even just one of them, but if they weren't to get both of them, that is very, very, very difficult to replace, given how important the two of them were this season. That's where you would see the summer recruitment really kind of having to step up a gear, I think. But that said, Ange Postecoglou's mentioned a few times that they were doing work in the background, so they will have a list. They will have targets identified if these things don't work out. But it's very positive news so far on both fronts, you would say. But certainly Carter-Vickers from yesterday, that stepped up another wee gear.
With the exception of yesterday, Sean, when the Everton and Fulham link was put out there, in the past, Celtic players who were maybe going to sign, they've been linked with all and sundry. But it's been very, very different with Cameron, Carter-Vickers and Jota. You know, there's not been a lot of that kind of, as you would say, negative press coming out or saying all the players are looking elsewhere. They've always been very focused, and it's a real kind of change in perception and change in direction. And I applaud Celtic for that as well. That, as you say, the work they've been doing in the background to convince these guys their future lives at Celtic Park, you can't underestimate that.
I agree with you, and I think even when there was the couple of runs of games where Jota get man of the match and therefore he goes and speaks, and he was always asked, I think he dealt with that quite well. Yeah, there was kind of some quarters there was almost, well, he's not answering it, so maybe he's not, that kind of thing. Yeah, but I think it all came from Postecoglou's message, which was let them play their football first, and we'll decide at the end of the season. Now that isn't exactly a massive new thing to say about a loan player, but you get the impression that he also lives that day in, day out, and wasn't putting any pressure on them in the background. And it wasn't just for the camera to say that. It was actually, let them play their football, let us get over the line, and then we'll do it in the summer. Because as that article that you wrote with the agent said, there's a certain element of protecting everybody in a loan deal, protecting the club that might sell, protecting the club that might buy, and protecting the player. Everybody gets a chance to try it, if you know what I mean. A try before you buy type of thing, with a kind of a fee involved. So there wasn't really any rush. And we said this in January. The calls, obviously, in January were sign Jota now, that kind of thing. It was never a massive emergency for me if they didn't get him in January, because the deal was always to the end of the season anyway. And I think I kind of made that clear in January when we were kind of discussing it. If they wanted to get him, fair play. But I don't think it was a massive emergency if they didn't by the time the January window closed. And obviously we're talking about Carter-Vickers more, but certainly with Jota, it remains to be seen if that's the case. But I do think that it does make an impact that Ange Postecoglou was very much about let them play their football first.
The thing that impressed me most, Sean, there was a fantastically relaxed ambience about those two deals with those two players. There was never pressure, as you said. I never once felt that these guys were under pressure to say anything. And as you say, Jota did handle it like a boss. You know, he wasn't. You know, people say, oh, he was non-committal. He just kept saying, "Let me focus on my football," which, as you say, and I've said before, when players speak, you hear the manager speaking, don't you?
You do, aye. That I've said that for ages. I think there's certain players, especially, you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't mean they're just mimicking him. I just mean that it's obviously rubbing off on them, the attitude, that kind of thing. So I don't mean just the kind of platitudes, which it is a platitude to say one game at a time. Obviously, they do that. They live that out as well, where they really were just taking it one game at a time. But I mean, in general terms, the way they talk about their training, the way they talk about the way they approach a game in terms of playing their own football and all that, none of that is a platitude to me. It does sound as if it's just the manager's attitude rubbing off on them, having worked with them day in, day out.
Yeah.
I like this comment from Rob McCune. I wonder how much influence this actually had on proceedings, if any of them signed. But
yeah, but even, I mean, we've spoken about this before. Even that camaraderie, Sean, there's a unity there, there's a collective, there's a spirit, and it's great to see the players go away together like that, rather than go their separate ways. Because then, again, there'd be that negativity creeping in. Because remember when Jota went back to Portugal?
Yeah.
When he was injured, and it was like, and then all of a sudden, there was a new manager coming in and he wants Jota, and you know, these things grew arms and legs, and you know, there's been kind of, apart from that, there's been none of that really, and you know, and I just love all that. That I've said before, and we said right at the start, if the players are happy, they will sign with the club at the end of the deal, didn't we? We spoke about that. It wasn't just that money being a motivating factor. Personal happiness, the chance to win things, and maybe compete at the highest club stage possible, the Champions League.
Well,
we caveated that at the very start of these deals and said if all of those boxes are ticked, the players could eventually sign.
We did. I mean, it's in terms of the player that this kind of ties into the try before you buy thing. But in terms of what Celtic are getting, we all know that's the benefit of a loan deal. In a sense,
Yeah.
Some people don't like them. I think it depends on the player. But we've seen him in this team. We've seen him alongside these teammates. Seen him with this manager. Form is obviously a consideration, but all else being equal, there's nothing else that Carter-Vickers could have done to put in a better addition for a permanent move. I mean, he won our website player of the season too. After all, maybe that swung it for him. Who knows?
Yes,
but,
of course. That can't be underestimated either, Sean.
You mentioned about personal happiness and all that. Carter-Vickers has been out on loan umpteen times in the last 5-6 years. He's still only 24, remember, so it's not like he's getting on a bit, but it's nonetheless a sense of security, a sense of belonging. You can't underestimate that. And another aspect, and bear with me when I say this, because you'll probably be like, what are you talking about? But bear with me a bit, it's that sense of backing yourself as well.
Yeah.
Now, I talked about that with the likes of Matt O'Reilly when he signed and stuff, but lots of fans didn't like the fact that Ryan Christie left for Bournemouth because, well, they're obviously a smaller club than Celtic, but more so because they weren't even in English top flight at the time. I saw it as him backing himself to get to the English top flight as a key player rather than joining a Burnley that didn't really suit him, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Now, maybe on the flip side of that, Carter-Vickers, despite reported interest from Premier League clubs, maybe he would rather back himself to thrive at the absolute top level with Celtic, i.e. the Champions League, instead of taking what many would call the easier option, the Premier League. Now, he's also back in the USA fold, and that's due to his form with Celtic, not his form with any of the last 3 clubs that he's at in England. I think it all counts.
Yeah, and there are very few platforms like Celtic, Sean. When it functions well, they offer you Champions League football, and there's many players who have come to Celtic and regained an international recall. So these things to me are a no-brainer. I think at the end of the day, if a player chooses to leave for an English Premier League club, then it's all about money for them, and that's fine because it's their prerogative to do that. But I think a lot of players weigh it up. There are a few better places to play football than for Celtic in the Champions League and competing every week to win things. And if you're happy, that's what I mean. Because you will get handsomely rewarded at Celtic. It's not as if you're doing it for nothing.
Exactly,
so,
aye.
So you'll be one of the higher bracket earners at the club. So yeah, it remains to be seen whether Carter-Vickers actually signs on a dotted line, but the signs are all there. It's all very positive, Sean, isn't it?
It is. And you mentioned, well, we both mentioned international recalls there. I think that segues nicely into the next topic.
Into the next thing we're going to talk about, and that is Anthony Ralston called up to the Scotland squad, Sean. Yep. And I think most people will say, one, it's long overdue, and two, it's thoroughly deserved.
I agree. I think I've kind of given up on the selection criteria by now, but it is good to see him getting back in. It's a good thing for him. You all know I sat here and made the case at the last international break that he deserved to be in the squad then, but ultimately that I wasn't surprised he didn't get the nod. This time round, there's Ralston plus Stephen O'Donnell plus Nathan Patterson and Aaron Hickey. Now, Kieran Tierney being injured has a lot to do with that. Has a lot to do with the personnel being selected. But it's still a fair whack of fullbacks for two wing-back roles. Yeah. I think it'd be a massive risk, right enough, talking about Scotland playing Aaron Hickey at left centre-back, but he played there for 20 minutes for Bologna a month ago, so you never know what he's going to do. But in terms of Ralston, I think it's good to see his season get the recognition it deserves. He kind of fell out the starting role a wee bit when Juranovic and him were both fit. Juranovic got injured again. He ended the season as first choice again. He might not start for Scotland, Tony. And in fact, again, I'd be surprised if he did. But to me, I don't think that changes the fact that he is the form fullback in that Scotland squad outside Andy Robertson.
Without a doubt.
More minutes, more assists, same amount of goals as Hickey, I think. More clean sheets, better dual win rates, etc., etc. He's had a great season. And yes, some of that will be to do with the fact he plays for Celtic. But to me, that's also a feather in his cap. That's not something to beat him when he's playing for Celtic.
Sean, the manager at Celtic Football Club has turned a fullback who could have been out the door into an international defender. That says it all for me. And Anthony Ralston has been willing to listen and learn to a manager who's kept the faith in him. And he's repaid that faith by his own performances, and he did it himself, and he should be applauded for that. And I was one of Anthony Ralston's biggest critics. Held my hand up to
there's
that.
There's very few people who were not a critic, to be honest, at the start of the season.
So, and he's won me over, and he's won a lot of Celtic supporters over through sheer hard work, endeavour, and let's not kid ourselves, some allied to talent as well.
Yep.
Because that pass he played for Kyogo's goal in the last day of the season, sensational. It really is a brilliant through ball. And from the very first game of the season where he went on the Maisie and scored at Tynecastle, got Celtic back into the game, his trajectory has just gone up and up and up, and he deserves everything that's coming to him. Whether he starts for Scotland or not, so be it. But just to see Anthony Ralston get international honours is, you know what, it's a brilliant Cinderella fairy tale story, really, isn't it?
Yep. Can I just confirm this is not a burner account of mine? Start Greg Taylor over Andy Robertson for the Ukraine game. No, I don't even think I would go that far, but it's good to see. There are other Celtic players in that squad, obviously, lest we forget. It's Greg Taylor is in there again. You've got Callum McGregor, who, as always, will be key to what happens. I think with Greg Taylor, he retains his place in the squad. He's obviously got the faith of of Steve Clarke, but he's also enjoyed probably the best period of his career to date. So I wouldn't expect him to get game time, but it's still very good for him to be in there as well. As I say, Callum McGregor's there. The other guy who's in there is David Turnbull, who returns after his injury, because he obviously missed a squad with his injury. Are you surprised he's back in, Tony? Or?
Give him his real name, Sean, the Bull.
The Bull.
No, I'm not surprised. You know why? Because I think he's a gifted footballer. I really do. I like Turnbull, and I thought Turnbull showed glimpses of returning to some real form with the cameos that he played at the end of the season. And I'm excited now to see Turnbull go again for next season. Because the manager clearly likes him, because the manager name-checked him a lot when he was out.
He did.
Injured. And I always say, Sean, and I'm going to say, manager watches these guys in training every day. So I can only assume that Turnbull had the attitude and application and effort and desire to force his way back into his thinking, even when he was injured, and shown him that you know what, I'm still around. I'll still perform for you. Give me a chance. And I think, you know, because he relied on that three, didn't he? McGregor, Rogic and Turnbull for the first half of the season. You know, so, and then by the end of the season, Turnbull started to feature more and more. And I just think the manager looks at him and thinks, there's a player in you. So I'm not surprised to see Turnbull in the Scotland squad, because we don't have a plethora of truly gifted players. But I think Turnbull fits into that category. When he's on it, he can be a really gifted footballer.
No, I agree. I think him getting some game time over the last few games of the league season there must have helped him get back in the squad. That said, he was a consistent member of the squad before his injury. Even if he didn't really see a lot of game time, but he was still in the squads. So he's probably one of those where he wasn't out of the squad due to form and was maybe always likely to get the chance back in it once he was fit. But it's still very good news for him, and it's a massive game for Scotland. So to have four of the Celtic players in there is good.
And again, I'm not underestimating the part the manager's played in this. The manager's aware of everything. The manager knows Turnbull's desperate to get back into the Scotland squad. The manager encourages players to represent their countries because it's a badge of honour. So he's played him in order for Stevie Clarke to see him and say, you know what, good enough to come back in. You know, I like what I'm seeing there. And also, you know, so I think the manager is very astute, very aware of that, you know, aware of everything, and has helped him get back in by playing him and telling him, you're as good as anybody in this country, go and show it. And I think that's just the message he gives him, because he does like Turnbull, I have to say. I think he feels there's a real footballer in Turnbull, and like I think so too. And can you imagine like Sir Turnbull, O'Reilly, McGregor, Hatate at full pelt, possibly Ideguchi, which we've not seen. You know, that's a plethora of options there, Sean. I know we lost Tom Rogic, but you know, you feel that you've got players there now that can fill that gap and void now that Tom's away, and possibly more to come in. So it is exciting when you look at it like that.
Patrick mentioning that there, I think he thinks we maybe need another option to push it. I'd agree. I think it worked quite well rotating between O'Reilly and Rogic depending. So I think you do need somebody else there. That said, there's no reason Turnbull can't be that guy as well, because you've got Hatate sitting there who'll have a full pre-season behind him. If Ideguchi makes a mark, and another who we presume is going to come in the central midfield role, we presume that's going to be the case. So it does. I keep saying it. I say it pretty much every day. It is an exciting summer for me. Even though there's no kind of nerves of the qualifiers to come, that just makes it more intriguing to me, just to see how they shape up and how they use the pre-season to their advantage. Because there's no rushing about now. They might be intending to be swift in the market, but that's not the same as rushing the way that maybe they have in the previous years to get ready for the qualifiers, or some would argue not get ready for the qualifiers and wait until after it.
I think it's methodical now, Sean. They can plan with cold, calculating precision what they're going to do and who they're going to bring in, and I think that's always the scenario that the manager wanted. You know, that just to my thinking, because he realised that Celtic could win this title and give themselves that breathing space by going straight into the Champions League group stages. He alluded to that a few weeks before the end of the season when it became known, and he kind of had it in his head that Scottish teams were going to be straight into the Champions League. So he was planning ahead in his mind and thinking, if we do this, then it affords us that luxury of.
Definitely. It doesn't. He kind of mentioned before, he takes it one game at a time, and so to speak, but he still looks at the calendar, if you know what I mean. He knows what's ahead. It's a very exciting pre-season for me. I keep saying it, but I think it is.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I think that's a exciting note to end on, Sean. Today, another wonderful bulletin. Really enjoyed that. And again, I'll just direct you to our sponsor. We thank them for it. The One Football app. Get downloading, guys. It's a cracking app. You won't be disappointed. The one-stop football shop for scores, news, lineups, transfer rumours, live streaming, match highlights, and much, much more. Immerse yourself in the digital football world and have the best digital football experience out there. Now, we thank them for their sponsorship. And as you can see, new deal running along the bottom. It's a free trial of the Celtic Way for 1 month. you can support top quality journalism covering the club you love. You know what to do. Join us, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. To all the subscribers, we thank you from the bottom of our heart. To all the contributors and all the people that comment, we thank you too. We enjoy the engagement. We enjoy the bulletins. You can probably tell it's just an exciting time, an enjoyable time to be around Celtic at this minute, Sean. We never stop.
It is.
We're hoping it continues.
Tory, speaking of the subscription for the website, without giving too much away, I'm going to put this comment up. Need to do something in Europe next season, boys. We all know the significance of the date tomorrow. So if you're interested in European things, maybe the day is the day to take the free trial up, because there'll be a wee treat for you on that website tomorrow if you're interested in doing things in Europe. Isn't there, Tony?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. 25th of May. Don't need to tell you the date, really, and what happened on that day. But yeah, we'll have something special tomorrow on the website, won't we?
Yes, we certainly will. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Guys, have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow. Same time, same back channel. Well, I might not see you because I'm off on holiday, Sean. Is that right?
Yes, aye.
Yes, I'm off on holiday for a week, guys. So I'll leave you in the more than capable hands of Sean Martin, Esquire. But guys, thanks for everything. Really enjoy it. We really thank you for your comments and stuff. And we enjoy the banter as well. And there was one earlier that somebody said, "Good morning, Sean, Tony, and wardrobe." I did like that. These kind of things keep us going. Sean, thanks for your contribution. First class again. Take care, guys. All the best.
Cheers, Tony. Cheers, guys.